Qamar Cheema with my YouTube channel, The New Word with Dr. Cheema. And I'm thrilled to have with me Ms. Noha Mahmood, who is a journalist based in UAE, in Dubai. And she has been working with Yahoo, Sky News, and Al Hura News. Thank you very much, Ms. Noha, for your time for my YouTube channel.
Thank you, Dr. Chima, for having me on your show.
Thank you. Ms. Noha, today's conversation with you is about the American president's visit to the Middle East. While sitting in Dubai, how do you see the visit of President Biden? He was in Israel and then Palestine, and then he visited Saudi Arabia and he met with the leaders of the GCC. So, how the region is basically looking the visit of President Biden?
Mhm. Critics say that the first leg of Mr. Biden's to Middle East trip to Israel and occupied West Bank did not deliver any significant achievements. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia, I mean, the situation is different because Saudi Arabia was always going to be the controversial stop of Mr. Biden's first trip to the Middle East as US president. Just 5 weeks later, earlier, I mean, he said that he wouldn't meet with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, but they met. And the Saudis want this meeting to be happen, and knew the world would be watching this meeting, and they wanted to the rest of the Middle East and the international community to see this meeting and to set up and take notice of the favor they had been granted by the U.S. Of America. I wanted to say that if the president of the United States went to Saudi in the middle of July, where nobody wants to be there because of the heat, that means that the crown prince got some of what he wants, and that means that at least the two countries have agreed or had agreed on the basics. Including the direct flights from Israel to Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince said like 2 weeks ago that he is never going to accept any interfering to Saudi politics. And on the other hand, the United States is still waiting to see if it succeeded to persuade Saudi to pump more of oil and help to lower the price of the oil, and that will be seen as a victory by the U.S. voters. But so far, there is a little sign that Mr. Biden left Saudi Arabia with this prize.
So, Ms. Noha, how do you see this new multilateral forum, the ITU2, where the United Arab Emirates, Israel, India, and Americans have engaged, where the leaders first met virtually? So, how this is being seen in the region, and particularly UAE? UAE is a very important partner of the Americans and for the region. And how do you see the mainstreaming of India in the Middle East? How from which lens is being seen in Middle East and particularly in United Arab Emirates?
Mhm. I think the creation of the I2 U2 that seeks to expand political and economic cooperation in the Middle East and Asia highlights the intent of the United States to initiate a potential geographic restructuring of the region in the Middle East and North Africa and Middle East and Asia, and embrace India within its Asia pivot. And that has been an elusive strategic bet that's perhaps starting to pay off. And I think that the I2U2 um, means for India's foreign policy posture, particularly in regards to China, and it's in regards to balancing China role in the Middle East and Asia as well. I mean the West Asia region and Middle East. And when it comes to Middle East and Asia, we should know that most of countries here in the Middle East rely on imported wheat and are vulnerable to rising global wheat prices. And I think India played an important role regarding that, and still plays an important role regarding this issue, especially after the war in Ukraine. And I think that the I2U2 cements and modernizes the India's decades-old economic engagement of the region or with the region, especially with the GCC, because the GCC is one of the largest trading partners of India, and actually because of the substantial oil and gas reserves to fulfill India's energy need that are growing day by day. And I think this becomes more important these days because of the sanctions against Russia that are threatening to undermine India and Russia cooperation trade with each with between Russia and India, I mean. And at the same time, the UAE, alongside the Saudi Arabia, are seeking to lead the way for Gulf state to be ready to be ready after oil period. I mean, they wanted to widen the sectors away from the oil production, and I think the Indian market is offers itself as an option here because of two reasons. First of all, it has growing population, and second, it has more needs for energy, and this, of course, will be applied by the oil and the gas that the Gulf states will provide India with. The other thing is, I think India started to think waste no longer to be a passive player, and realizing that changing developments in the region, especially the growing US desire to be out from the region, or from the Middle East, to be more specific, were an opportunity to not just find areas of energy, but also to be part of normalization process in West Asia.
Hmm. So, Ms. Noha, coming back to this visit of President Biden, so how come the energy needs of the Europe and the West, and particularly the Americans, do you believe the Middle Eastern powers agreed to fulfill, and particularly the meeting which President Biden had with the GCC countries? So, what was the outcome? What do you think that whether President Biden was successful enough to get those assurances of more oil because the Americans wanted that the Middle Eastern power should pump more oil into the market. So how basically the GCC countries are looking that side of the visit? Do you think that the President Biden's request was accepted, and the GCC partners are going to work for that?
So far, I don't see any result of this visit regarding the oil, or regarding to pump more oil, which is the main desire of Mr. Biden's first trip to the Middle East. But on the other hand, I think there is another gains for the GCC from this visit. For the UAE, for example, it becomes an important member of the I2U2, which which is, I think it will be more important tool for the four members of it: India, UAE, Israel, and the United States, to not only counter China but also help each other to help each other with many aspects away from politics, like climate change, global health, like regional connectivity, like security threats, and so on. But and for Saudi, I think the Crown Prince made it clear when he said through multiple media, including the Wall Street Journal, that he is never going to he's never going to he's never going to accept any interfering in Saudi politics. And I think he meant that he wants the whole immunity from criticizing, from punishing him or his authority or his administration for human rights activists, or something like Khashoggi case. And back to the I2U2 summit, virtual summit, I think the results of this summit does not appear yet, but I think any attempt to force this group to assume anti-Pakistan or anti-China or anti-Iran tone could prevail its principal objective, because I think the UAE, India, and even Israel have different views on China compared with the United States, and I think the same applies to Iran and Pakistan too. So so far, I don't see there is an cleared target for this summit.
So, Ms. Noha, how do you see this uh, Abraham Accord? How has basically the Middle Eastern countries basically looking at this development, which was obviously very many countries in the Muslim world were thinking this is an obviously a new development, because the decades old position on Israel and the region was different. So largely, how do you see the what is a perspective, and how the world is looking, how the Middle Eastern world is looking this Abraham Accord, because this is something which which connects people in the region, and there is also a perspective that the old ideas they need to be forgotten, and they should be forgotten, and the world needs to engage, and the region needs to engage more, so that the miseries of the people could be overcome, and at the end of the day they should get to the table for resolving the issue. So largely, how this Abraham Accord is being viewed in Middle East.
I think a significant factor in the development of a regional cooperative mechanism in West Asia is the Abraham Accords. And I think India's addition to the mix, I mean the I2U2, will no doubt accelerate the bilateral cooperation and the dynamics between the countries of this agreement into what has been referred to as critics say it's Indo-Abrahamic order. However, India has also seen as an upsurge in its synergy with the UAE and Israel in aspect sectors like technology sectors. And this is a crucial domain of emerging technologies. And both countries, I mean Israel and UAE, are two of the most powerful tech hubs. And I think India uh, uh, will teach a lot for them, and this will help India more in this sector. So it can hence prove to be an invaluable for India, which is looking to build up its technology ambitions via cooperation with like-minded states. And when it comes to Saudi, I don't think Saudi will give more than the direct flights from Israel to its lands, because they have like a firm situation from normalization with Israel, as it has asserted many times that no peace with Israel and no normalization with Israel without the settlement of the case in Palestine. So I think this is the main situations here in the Gulf regarding the Abraham Accords.
So one last question, Ms. Noha, and that is that do you think this I2U2 someday can have a military component as well? Largely, we have seen that this is about economics, this is about connectivity, this is about engaging to look at the energy and commercial needs. But do you think that looking the developing situation and the way Americans are establishing, let's say, multilateral forums like Quad in the Indo-Pacific, and then this I2U2. Do you think that this may have sometime a military orientation or component sometime? Do you find any kind of that? Do you have that assessment, or how do you read that?
So far, I don't think so, but I think it depends on the target of this group. And I think that they already cooperated in military aspects, but not within this Noli grouping form, but I think in another grouping like. Uh, I don't remember the name of it, but I think they already have relationship in military aspects, but not within this group. But I think it has more economic and political target than military target. And of course, you know that UAE and Israel had lately and military exercise here in UAE, and of course with the United States as well. And there is also, I think, I'm not sure of that, but I think India has a significant um, uh, has a significant a significant point when it comes to military, because it has like modern arms that will that will be privileged for India. But I think it's not ready yet to enter in such a military agreement or military exercise with such a group. I think this group is not in need to such military cooperation rather than economic and political one.
Mm. Thank you very much, Vishnu Mahmood, for your time and giving us a perspective from Middle East and particularly from United Arab Emirates. That how this the new developments, multilateral forums like I2U2, the Abraham Accord, and the Indian mainstreaming in Middle East is being viewed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.